Since General Motors and Reynolds disappeared in Messina and Alcoa downsized, Plattsburgh has been the center of manufacturing in the North Country. Big names with many connections to Canada, like Bombardier, Nova Bus. But Nova Bus is closing, and SterX, a big pharmaceuticals company, already did close. But local officials, at least in public, are trying not to fret. They say Plattsburgh is in the right place for new companies. And that's proven true, at least for one high-tech manufacturer, Beta. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, dedicated to providing patient care and regional services to the people of St. Lawrence County. claxtonhepburn.org.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Thursday, December 14th. First up, Fort Drum is getting almost 1,500 new personnel and soldiers. The North Country base was selected to house U.S. Army Multi-Domain Task Force No. 2, along with the base in Germany. According to Senator Chuck Schumer's office, multi-domain task forces are part of the Army's mission to combat emerging national security threats. Fort Drum and the Germany base will support European Command. Task Force soldiers will likely rotate between the two bases starting in 2025. A North Country sheriff spoke at a congressional hearing last week on how increased immigration is impacting emergency management services. Over the last year, the southern border has seen historic numbers of people trying to cross. U.S. Customs and Border Protection statistics show that the number of encounters along the northern border have also greatly increased. Clinton County Sheriff David Favreau said the flow of migrants has placed a significant strain on the county.
The influx of transient populations funneled through our region has not only raised concerns, but has led to a surge in emergency response calls.
Favreau said the region's weather and terrain pose risks for both the migrants trying to cross the border and first responders. He said other concerns include agency staffing shortages, housing shortages, and high-speed pursuits. Favreau, who's a Democrat, voiced support for bringing back Trump-era border policies to stem the flow.
The federal government must enact legislation to ensure the lasting security of our border. Reinstating the MPP Remain in Mexico policy is a crucial step towards regaining control and understanding who enters our country.
The controversial Remain in Mexico policy required asylum seekers to wait in Mexico until their hearings. Opponents said it put them at risk of violence. The Biden administration formally ended the program, but continued to use a different Trump policy to expel migrants until earlier this year. The Canton-Potsdam area was abuzz Monday afternoon after a minor earthquake rumbled through. It highlighted a tool on the federal earthquake website. People can report their experiences to science. Catherine Wheeler reports.
The U.S. Geological Survey tracks earthquakes around the world. It picked up Monday's 2.8 magnitude earthquake about 5 miles outside of Canton. The USGS website also has a feature so you can report what the earthquake felt like to you.
Did you feel it is an interesting crowdsourcing citizen science project?
That's Alexander Stewart. He's an associate professor of geology at St. Lawrence University. Stewart says the North Country has a special connection to the survey. It was developed by David Wald, a geologist who graduated from St. Lawrence in 1984.
He developed this program right at the forefront of internet ability, capability, access, right? Where they thought of an idea, how can we get people to respond to their experiences, in this case earthquakes?
Stewart says the survey measures shaking intensity, or how people are interpreting the earthquake through their senses. You can fill out a series of questions online.
Did you feel it? Where were you? Were you awake? Were you asleep on the first floor, second floor, third floor? Did things fall off the shelves?
Since Monday's minor earthquake, nearly 280 responses have been recorded through the Did You Feel It survey. Most of them are centered around Canton and Potsdam. Someone made a report east of Fort Drum, and there's one south near Utica. Stewart says he didn't feel the earthquake at his house in Morristown, about 45 minutes from Canton, but he still filled out the survey. He says knowing where the earthquake wasn't felt is just as important.
Most importantly is it's a repository for how particular magnitude earthquakes in a particular region impact the human environment. The more that information you have, the more you're able to plan, the more you're able to determine what can be built where and how to prepare for future events and future probabilities.
Stewart says geologists and communities can use this data when they're planning to see how earthquakes could affect certain buildings or structures. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
A Vermont-based aerospace company is getting a big investment from New York State to expand its facility in Plattsburgh. Beta Technologies is developing rechargeable, all-electric aircraft. It announced plans earlier this year to certify one of its planes, with the goal of getting it to commercial customers in 2015. As Kara Chapman reports, Beta's aircraft will take off into the market from Plattsburgh.
Beta Technologies will get a $20 million grant to support a $41 million expansion of its flight testing facility at Plattsburgh International Airport. In exchange for the state money, Beta has to create 85 new full-time jobs there.
Well, it's terrific news for the entire region.
That's Clinton County Legislature Chair Mark Henry. Clinton County owns the Plattsburgh Airport.
It will be good jobs for folks in the area. I believe it will expand in future. It will only get bigger.
Once the expansion is complete, the facility will serve as Beta's manufacturing and final assembly hub. It'll also be a permanent flight test and aircraft delivery center. COO Blaine Newton says that means it's where all the finishing touches will take place before the aircraft go to customers.
There are many customers who want to do a flight test with us, and then we'll actually hand over the proverbial keys to the customers at that site as well.
Newton says jobs at the facility will include maintenance technicians, aircraft mechanics, engineers, customer service representatives, and aircraft painters. He says how many of each position they'll hire will evolve as they recruit.
This is, in our mind, what New York State and Clinton County do really, really well, is lean forward in these new industries and help develop the talent that is needed as we grow.
And that's already in the works. Earlier this year, Beta launched a program with CV Tech that trained several automotive technology students to paint Beta's aircraft. Michelle Friedman is the Director of Career and Technical Education at CV Tech. She says the next cohort is queued up and ready to go.
So by the time the painting facility opens on the former Plattsburgh Air Force Base, we will have a pipeline ready and certified AFEs ready to go over.
Newton says Beta's already purchased equipment for the paint booth those technicians would use, and the company's looking at what other workforce development initiatives it can create across the North Country. Newton says the hope is that construction on the expansion will start next year.
Our anticipation is that customers will start taking delivery of our aircraft, certified aircraft, in 2025, and so we're fighting to reach those timelines.
The news of Beta's expansion comes during a tough year for manufacturing in Clinton County. Nova Bus announced in June that it plans to close its factory and pull out of the area by 2025. And this fall, pharmaceutical company SterX closed its Plattsburgh facilities. Mark Henry, the county legislature chair, says the news that Beta is growing shows the county can attract new businesses.
It's always disappointing when businesses leave here for whatever reason, obviously. It has a tremendous impact. But we seem to be pretty resilient and attract businesses like Beta to come in and take their place and provide jobs and opportunity for the folks here.
In addition to the state funding, Beta recently got approved for a $169 million loan from the Export-Import Bank of the United States. It'll finance the company's net zero final assembly production facility in Vermont and support 400 clean energy jobs. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Remember, it's easy to listen to Story of the Day at different times of the day when it works for you by subscribing to the podcast. It's the same show, the same thing, just delivered earlier at 4 o'clock every afternoon to your phone or laptop or whatever you want, and it's free. Subscribe in your podcast app or go to ncpr.org/podcast for more information. Music today by Danny Thomas of Canton and Eric Pasternak of Bloomingdale. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.